Hey, Shalom, Akim, Shalom. Call halal Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah HaKodash, on this in double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to you, Akim, out there pushing the word in sincerity and truth. It's Brother Ariala. And I just want to do a quick lesson. This is going to be kind of a World War III algorithm. Calamity and distress of the people is what's getting ready to come. You know, calamity and distress of the people. And I pulled up this word, calamity, in the etymology, as we see the Vanessa being passed out, you know, the Vicky, Crown Vicky being passed out. More people are starting to stand up against certain mandates and everything like that. And it's causing division amongst the nations, divisions amongst the people within the nations all across the world. And it's going to bring more calamity as people fight on one side and the other. Now, you look at this word calamity in the early 15th century. It says damage, state of adversity, a great misfortune or cause of misery, right? Damage, loss, failure, disaster, misfortune, adversity. And we see these things coming. We see these things coming for sure. And it says early etymologists associated with calamus or straw says on the notion of damage to crops. All right. It says perhaps it is from a lost root, also preserved in calamus or uninjured. All right. And so that being said, man, as things begin to continue, or as things continue to ramp up and go to the next level, we're going to see people more and more friction amongst the people, more and more fighting amongst the people. People are already kind of fighting online, and you see all the Karens, you know, white Edomite women, you know, losing their nursing jobs and exposing the true nature of the Crown Vicky. All that, those type of things are coming more and more and more. And so I wanted to go through a couple of articles and some scriptures. I wanted to start off with this one in Sirach, the 10th chapter, because we understand that we're at the height of Esau's pride. You know, they're getting ready to come out with the MOB and roll out the MOB, and the whole mission of the MOB is pride. It's ultimate pride to think that you're going to be able to be as the Most High. And so it says here in Sirach 10 and 12, the beginning of pride is when one departed from the Most High and his heart is turned away from his Maker. For pride is the beginning of sin, and he that hath it shall pour out abomination. And therefore the Lord brought upon them strange calamities and overthrew them utterly. Okay, the Lord hath cast down the thrones of proud princes and set up the meek in their stead. The Lord hath plucked up the roots of the proud nations and planted the lowly in their place. Okay. The Lord overthrew countries of the heathen and destroyed them to the foundations of the earth. And we're seeing that process happen. We're seeing these calamities begin to turn up all across the world. Now, I have pulled this article up here on Wikipedia. It says protests over responses to the 19 pandemic. And when you look into this thing, it says there have been protests, demonstrations, and strikes around the world against national responses to the ongoing vid pandemic by governmental bodies. Some have protested against governmental failure to stem the spread, and others have been driven by the financial hardship resulting from government measures to contain the virus, including restrictions on travel and entertainment, hitting related industries and casual workers hard. Protests against restrictions on people's movement, compulsory wearing of face masks, lockdowns, Vickies, and other measurements. Okay? Now, when you read this, look at all the different protests in the different places around the world that's going on currently. So it's a huge list. In Africa, you got places like the Ivory Coast, Kenya, Nigeria. You know, the list goes on there. You have protests going on in Asia, over in China, in India, and Lebanon, Pakistan, Europe. Look at all these different nations that have people protesting out in the streets, extremely angry about the shutdowns of their businesses, the mandatory Vickies that's being passed out, and the restriction of being able to move. The scriptures talks about these things over and over and over again. So look here in Europe, how all across Central and Eastern Bloc Europe, you have protests. Southern Europe, Italy, Netherlands, Poland, Russia, Serbia, Spain, Bulgaria. This is happening all across the world. Of course, we understand what's going on here in the States, but North America in general, in Canada, there's protests, Cuba, Mexico, everywhere, right? Now, it says here under reasons, in order to prevent the spread of the virus, which gave rise to the 19 pandemic, governments brought in health measures at varying levels of strictness to restrict the movement of people and transmission of the virus. In response to these restrictions, protests have been organized at a number of locations around the world, and strikes have also occurred. Some of the protests have criticized governments for not acting effectively enough in their responses to the pandemic, while others have been opposed to preventative measures and called for their revocation. All right. According to analysis as part of the Global Peace Index, as of July 2021, there had been around 50,000 protests linked to the pandemic worldwide, 5,000 of which were violent. All right. C-19 lockdowns have inspired protests in many territories from the late 2020 deployment of the Vicky also inspired protests. All right. Now, what does the scripture say about this? It says, I'll just exit it out of what I wanted to read, but I'm going to skip over to 2 Ezra chapter 15, verse 13. It says, go down. Verse 14, it says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the courses of their actions shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city, and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, calamity. Their houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Right? So all of these things are increasing, right? We're seeing truckers beginning to strike because they're doing mandatory Vickies on them and other type of restrictions and stuff like that. We're seeing you're not being able to go into certain types of businesses if you don't have a certain passport. All of these type of things is happening, and it's just causing more and more tumults of the people. Let's see if this plays. Might not play. We'll see.
The World Health Organization is warning of a new wave of COVID infections and deaths. This follows weekend protests in France, Italy, and Australia against new restrictions. Here's CBS's Elizabeth Palmer.
Riot police faced off against French protesters this weekend who are angry about rules that make vaccine passports compulsory to enter many public places. But most people have accepted the idea. At the Eiffel Tower, everybody in the line has to show a proof of vaccination barcode or certificate or take an on-site COVID test in order to enjoy the views from this famous landmark, which has just reopened after 9 months. In Athens, too, there were demonstrations after the Greek government made vaccinations mandatory for health workers. It's also insisting ferry passengers traveling to the Greek islands show proof of immunity to protect its vital tourism industry. Over on the other side of the world on Saturday, police in Sydney ducked flower pots hurled by protesters, furious about a new lockdown. Australia had kept COVID at bay by closing its borders, but the virus sneaked in anyway, and infections are now on the rise. And here in England, young clubbers celebrated not only the end of lockdowns, but all COVID restrictions, partying in crowded venues on so-called Freedom Day at the start of the week. The number of people testing positive.
Right, and so you're going to see more and more of this as they begin to go ahead and bring more of these different mandates down. You know, we all know what Biden got up there and basically proclaim that he is king, and you gonna do what I say, or you gonna get.
But we're going to begin with the current crisis facing this country, the COVID pandemic. Tonight, President Biden is getting fierce pushback to his vaccine mandate that would impact 2/3 of American workers. More than 20 Republican governors are lined up in opposition. The president is firing back, calling those governors cavalier with the health of children, and he appears ready to battle it out in court. Boosting his case is new research showing that if you are unvaccinated, listen to this, you are 11 times more likely to die from COVID.
Right. More fear mongering, right? More fear mongering. And so, you see how the GOP, you got these different governors of the different states. They're resisting the different mandates that Biden is trying to push. And so it's leading into what? A divided house. And the scriptures talk about that. Matthew 12:25 says, and Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to a desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. Okay, and so what we're seeing is this house and the two little horns that we spoke about in Revelation. There's this clash happening, and it's going to ramp up. It's going to continue to ramp up, and even if you look on social media, you see people just arguing back and forth. Oh, you should take it. Oh, you shouldn't take it. Oh, this. Oh, that. And what is that going to lead to? More and more calamity. Here in Sirach, the 40th chapter. And I'm going to just read verse 9. It says, death and bloodshed, strife and sword, calamities, famine, tribulation, and the scourge. These things are created for the wicked, and for their sakes came the flood. Okay? And so we're at the height of wickedness. We can go back in 2nd Ezra 15 and read at the top, and it talks about how all of these things have built up until this point, That's why we're seeing more and more of these arguments getting ready to go down. And they're going to push more and more propaganda.
Pretty stunning number. CBS's Weijia Jiang is going to lead us off tonight from the White House. Good evening, Weijia.
Good evening to you, Nora. Republican leaders are accusing President Biden of bullying and coercion, and they promise to take steps to stop those new requirements from taking effect. But tonight, the president is not backing down, stressing that lives are at stake. Tonight, new CDC data reveals how deadly the Delta variant can be as cases soar across the country.
Those who were unvaccinated were about 4.5 times more likely to get COVID-19, over 10 times more likely to be hospitalized, and 11 times more likely to die from the disease.
At a middle school in Washington, D.C., President Biden urged young people to get their shots.
That's it. Simple, plain, straightforward. Get them vaccinated.
The push came just one day after the president rolled out the toughest federal vaccine mandates to date, including a new rule that employers with at least 100 employees must require workers to get their shots or get tested every week. Nearly 24 Republican governors have publicly opposed the plan.
Clearly, we have a president acting outside the bounds of the Constitution.
Some have even threatened to sue the administration. Mr. Biden's response, bring it on.
Have at it. I am so disappointed that particularly some of the Republican governors have been so cavalier with the health of these kids.
Yeah, man. And so you're going to see just more and more of these back and forths as they begin to push the MOB systems. And they need this chaos so they can come in and set order. And so they're going to see the numbers of infected people is going to continue to skyrocket. And they're going to say it's out of control. And towards the end of the year, it's probably going to be a mystery variant and a whole new system of regulation that needs to come in and be able to save everybody, right? So that's why the Most High is going to start to bring more and more calamity and judgment. It's going to be to save the elect. Right here in Ezekiel 35:5, it says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord power, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee, since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off it and cut off from it him that passes out and him that returneth. And so Mount Seir is representative of what? The Edomites, who is the so-called white people. And this nation of Babylon the Great, which is America, okay, all the European nations, we're going to see more and more bloodshed, death. All of these things are going to start to rain down as everything continues to ramp up and get more and more serious. These restrictions are going to get more and more serious. Everything is going to get more and more serious. And it's going to be going down. It's going to be going down big time. Okay? So call halal Yahweh Bashim Yahushua for that. Let me see what else we got here. Basically, just I had this pulled up because it was just kind of talking about mandate backlash. That was kind of
businesses who may consider requiring proof of vaccination from customers.
This is extremely dangerous. It's very divisive. It's segregationist. It's discriminatory.
Here's the message. The people who want vaccine passports are the ones who are happy to let you go bankrupt because they are too afraid to go out for over a year. The people who want you in business are the ones you'll be banning.
The word boycott doesn't appear on the flyer, but activists say that's their plan.
I personally will not use the services or buy food from a business that requires a vaccine.
Unvaccinated people's lives don't matter?
More local businesses have started requiring proof of vaccination, like Hop Monk Tavern. Its website says, out of an abundance of caution, it will require vaccine cards for ticketed concert events.
Every people must have to get vaccinated.
Aaron Napani says he'll consider vaccine proof if the Delta variant gets worse.
In the future, not right now. Right now, I have to trust with them. Whether they're vaccinated or not vaccinated.
Isabella.
It's going to cost these guys too much money, man. And what you're going to see all hell breaking loose when they start to, especially when a lot of these employees are going to start to be removed from their jobs. A lot of people that are refusing to take the Vanessa are going to be caught out here. And it's not going to be a good look. It's not going to be a good look. Thousands protest amid global anger against restrictions. We all know what's going down in Australia, but it's really everywhere. All of these things are going down, and it's going to be nothing but more and more and more of a buildup. And we're watching everything come to pass that, apostles and elders have been saying, brothers been talking about. We've been highlighting here on these different algorithms, and what we're just seeing the next thing. We're just seeing the next thing, and as they get ready to do the whole vaccination card thing, it's just going to get worse. So, I just wanted to highlight that, talk about that. I don't know if we're going to put this up on YouTube or BitChute or whatever, but I wanted to go ahead and record it, man. Call halal Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah Bahashim Rakah HaKodash. Double honors once again to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to y'all. I'm out there pushing words in Syria and truth. Shalom.